Hello everyone. In today's episode, I'm joined with Sarah, and today it's going to be a really good episode because we're going to be speaking about autism. It's gonna be awesome. So thanks, Sarah, for coming on today.
Sure, it's going to be great.
Yeah, yeah. So Sarah, could you do like a little introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm 31 years old. I'm a late diagnosed autistic. I received my diagnosis after experiencing quite a lot of mental health issues, including severe anxiety and depression. And it was a prolonged period. So during that time, it was really important that I got a diagnosis, and receiving my autistic diagnosis was the pivotal thing, actually, because it explained a lot of what I was experiencing. And it was something that once I had that diagnosis, the psychiatrist who diagnosed me picked up on a lot of things that I'd experienced from a very young age, and it basically changed my life. It saved my life, actually, because I had 2 mental breakdowns, which I now know are autistic burnouts. So misdiagnosis is such a huge topic, especially in the autistic community. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because mental health is really important, isn't it? With autism and anyway, and I feel it's important, and it's good in a way that helped with your diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I felt so different all my life and I felt quite alienated, I think that's where my mental health issues stemmed from, because I felt different, but I didn't know how to explain it. So this diagnosis, even in adulthood, is a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think quite a lot of people now getting diagnosed as an adult, and it's very interesting. Because back when I was diagnosed, everyone wasn't getting diagnosed as an adult, so it's just very interesting. Talking to you and people that get diagnosed as an adult, because I didn't experience that getting diagnosed as an adult. I can't remember much really of my diagnosis because I was very young.
Okay. Yeah, it is different. I think when you're diagnosed as a child, it still brings up emotions later on in life. But from my own experience of being diagnosed as an adult, it has its pros and its cons, as every diagnosis does. But like I said, it's empowered me, and knowing that this is me, and that's given me strength to recover. Not from autism, but from my mental health issues, recovering from those, because of course autism is a lifelong your neurotype. So it's not about treating the autism, it's about treating the comorbidity and the things that come along with it.
Yeah, there's so many different things, isn't there, with autism that come along with it, and like everyone has their different ways and how they do different things, which is quite cool, I'd say.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's color, isn't it? I see the spectrum as this beautiful rainbow, and everyone experiences autism in a different way, just like neurotypical people are different. But I really believe that autism can be a beautiful thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And like when you was diagnosed as an adult, like how was that, like when you got that diagnosis? Like, did you find it hard, like when you found out you did have autism?
I mean, I was struggling really with my mental health. I was in a very critical situation. So when I was referred on to a community mental health team, it was the psychiatrist that I first saw who noticed pretty much on my first meeting with her. And she did mention it. And at the time, I kind of hadn't considered it because the other professionals had just said, oh, generalized anxiety, trauma, depression. And when I got this autism question, have you ever thought that you could be autistic? I kind of said no. So when we explored the assessment a little bit, I was very lucky because my psychiatrist could diagnose the autism. And as we were going through that, there were a lot of light bulb moments. And like I've said before, my autism diagnosis, I really believe saved my life, because I was in such a critical situation with my mental health. So it comes with the positives and the negatives, like I've said, but I see it as such a, for me personally, and it's different for everyone, but my autism diagnosis, being autistic, has empowered me, and yeah, and there's lots of things that kind of came unraveled as I worked through that. But yeah, I mean, it's still kind of, it can be a shock to some people, and it can bereave kind of the person they thought they masked to be. But for me personally, I was masking so much that my autism diagnosis actually allowed me to be myself.
Yeah, it is hard. Like, I think, like, yeah, like you say, that there's good things and there's bad things about autism. Like, not, I think it's hard at the start for any diagnosis. Like, I didn't really accept it when I was younger, and I'm more confident when I get older and stuff. And I think autism
Yeah.
helps with that.
Yeah, I think there is like you've said, it's a huge acceptance. It's something huge to accept, isn't it? But it's not, although it's called an autism spectrum disorder, I see it, all these buzzwords that come around, like neurodivergent, and it's just a different way of thinking. Your brain is just wired differently, and that's how I try to kind of see myself, rather than it being a problem or something that needs to be dealt with. It's more about living with it, isn't it? And I think that's where the acceptance comes in.
Yeah, you have these words, don't you? You have like disorder,
Condition.
like, yeah, condition and
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And like nowadays, like you say, like you have neurodivergent, neurodiverse, which are more positive ways to think of it. And
Yes.
in the past, people will say it's an illness when autism isn't. Although we have
No.
it all the time. Like, it's nothing to be cured.
No.
Like, it doesn't. Although you might have bad days with it, like, autism can affect you anytime.
Yeah.
But it's not like you have to have surgery for it or anything, or like that, do you?
No, I mean, in the past, you know, way back when there was less awareness and acceptance of autism, that's where people were kind of coming up with, oh, maybe it needs to be cured. But for me and a lot of autistic people in the community, if we hear that word cured or problem or, you know, needs to be dealt with, those kind of words kind of make me feel quite angry, because it is who I am. And if I was to cure that, then I wouldn't be Sarah. I wouldn't be the person that I am. And I think that's what is so important about acceptance and awareness. Now we're in 2022, and although things haven't moved, they've moved quite a lot, but there still needs research and there still needs to be awareness raised. But we are in a different position now, where we accept who we are. And eventually it takes people different lengths of time. For someone like you said you didn't accept it straight away because you were a child, and maybe you didn't have the knowledge that you have now. Whereas for me, I found it a hugely important part of my mental health recovery.
Yeah, like, it's like that, isn't it? Like, we all have our different ways and dealing with things. Like, I was quite angry actually, when I found out I had it, and because I went from mainstream to a special school when I was younger, and that change was hard, and like, it's good. It was for the better, because mainstream didn't understand autism, really.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that as well. Even though for my whole educational life, I was in mainstream, but I struggled and I suffered. So like you just said, for you, although it was a huge change and you were angry to begin with, you knew eventually it was for the better. So
I remember parts. I think I remember going to London and getting tests done for being autism, and it's like with any diagnosis, it's hard to get diagnosed with anything, isn't it, nowadays? like it could be misdiagnosed easily, like I said earlier, and for other things.
Yeah, I mean, many women, have reported, and I include myself in this, being misdiagnosed with things like borderline personality disorder or bipolar. And yes, those can be comorbid with autism. However, it's not everyone. And the psychiatrist who diagnosed me as autistic said, this diagnosis of borderline personality disorder is not correct for you. So my diagnosis is actually autism with generalized anxiety disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. So I have those two, and then also I have depressive episodes, but those are kind of comorbid with the autism. So when that borderline personality disorder diagnosis was removed, I personally was relieved, because I was always told that there's something wrong with me, whereas the psychiatrist said, no, this is just who you are. And that's where I moved forward.
Yeah, it is, like, it's good that you have that support as well, and like with different people, and because it can, like for some people it's good, it's a good thing, and it is a good thing having autism. Like, it helps with so many things, I think. Like, even when you're an adult, like, you have help for different things, like maybe like you're going to an event, it being more like better for you, feel more comfortable and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, adaptations are so important, and to get adaptations or help with certain things that you find difficult, there has to be awareness. The thing that I struggled with was working. I have always chosen careers to help other people. So I've got a social work degree and I've got a teaching degree. However, the environment in which those two careers were, I burnt out very quickly. And that's when my mental health spiraled out of control. And what they thought were breakdowns were actually severe autistic burnout. So I haven't actually, I had to stop doing what I trained to do. And I'm in my recovery with my mental health. I'm now thinking of in different environments that I could work in, which would suit my sensory needs, my autism, and then therefore not burn out so quickly. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, so it's a sensory is like I'm sensory as well. Like, I didn't think I was, though. Like, when I was younger, I never think I was a sensory person. But like knowing that I don't like people coming close to me, like if they don't ask, or like people like giving me a hug or or anything like that, I like it. And even when it comes to noise, as well, like eating and people eating and making noise, even though I might as well, but
I'm exactly the same. I think it's quite funny, really, because my partner Sam, he will make tiny noises which kind of feel like my eardrums are perforating, and they're not. Of course they're not, because they're only small noises, but to me they're amplified. But then if I'm making those noises, he doesn't notice them. So I'm forever saying, stop doing that, it's hurting my ears. And he'll be like, but I'm just eating, or I'm just drinking, so the sensory issues that we have, obviously they're on a spectrum. But for me, noise sensitivity is a huge one. And also I would say visual, if there's too much going on in front of me, or if it's too bright, or those kind of things, I do struggle. And in terms of touch, I'm quite a tactile person myself, but I do like to be asked before being touched, like you. And I don't like being in crowded places. Yeah, so similar to what you were saying.
it was nice when social, like, people can keep their mates apart was there. Like, not there anymore. So like I still keep my mates apart from anyone anyway. Even before COVID, I would keep away because like we say, don't like going too close.
Yeah. How did you find lockdown?
I didn't mind it because I don't mind my own company, and that means I don't have to. There's no expectation for me to go out.
You've just hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
I was the same. I like my home comforts. I like staying in a comfortable place like the house. And as soon as I step out the door, my anxiety does increase. And that's for various things. But also, I don't know whether you found it, but your routines during COVID in lockdown, those were the things that I found joy in, because I was doing my routine and it wasn't being interrupted, and my environment was how I wanted it. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I feel like although it was probably the best time to go out as well, like especially the first lockdown, because most people were indoors, and
True.
it was the rules to go out. So I did go out occasionally, like in the evenings, like because no one was there.
Yeah,
Like,
so it was better. So it's better for you sensory wise. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes total sense. Yeah.
yeah. Like now, it's even worse than it was before.
Yeah.
Like everyone's going out and about now, and like some people COVID's not there, not talked about as much now, is it? So it's forgotten about, I feel, when especially people with autism as well, people with underlying conditions as well. It's kind of forgotten about. It's very confusing as well if you're autistic and
Yeah.
you're watching the news and stuff's happening, and government change minds quite a lot of the time, and
Yeah.
you think, hang on a minute, like 1 minute, like because I'm vulnerable, so I was in the shielding from the first lockdown anyway, so I had to stay in anyway, and they got a letter from the government, and then now they kind of say anyone can go out now, like even if you're vulnerable, which doesn't really make much sense.
No,
Really.
I'm the same as you. I'm clinically vulnerable. I have immunosuppressed system, so I also had to shield for the first lockdown. Yeah. It's strange times, isn't it? I mean, that's what's unsettling for autistic people, because the goalposts are constantly changing. Whereas in lockdown there was this very kind of strict rule that we all followed, and now, like you said, the rules have changed and we're not really kind of too sure about certain things like masks or not wearing masks. And I know we don't have to anymore, but you know, people who are vulnerable like yourself and myself might still want to wear masks because we are still vulnerable and the virus is still out there. But anyway, yeah, that's COVID for you.
Yeah, and the thing is that there's certain masks that are good and certain masks aren't. Like you'll find, like the blue ones that they wear in hospitals are not very protective. Like I have like, if I were to go to like a place like that, I would wear like the ones that the popular ones and that protect you really. But yeah, like I try to avoid if I'm not. Like I was there not long ago for a blood test, which I was. I don't mind going. They know who I am, like and stuff. But it's something I like to avoid and not go. But I know sooner or later I will end up there at some point for like a checkup or something.
Yes, yeah. I think we just have to take care, don't we? But in terms of the autism, I think it is unsettling if we don't know the rules, that the rules aren't clear, they're kind of woolly or kind of, you know, we like, I know autistic people are all different, but mostly we like to know what to expect, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We like to know what's going to happen, and like like it was probably kind of hard for people as well, like at the start as well, because every day I think they were saying how many people died each day from COVID, and although it's not nice, it's hard to watch, I suppose, as well, to see that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's like COVID times it's not nice, and like I've had about 4 jabs because I don't know about you, because like being vulnerable, you had the option to have a 4th, I think.
Yes, I had
yeah.
those.
Yeah.
I was the same.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to have a fifth, I think. And you kind of think, having all these jabs, like, when's it going to end? Like, all these jabs.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think in terms of moving on to kind of autism awareness and autism acceptance, it's obviously World Autism Acceptance Week, and for me, it's a great idea, I think. However, I don't know whether you agree with me. I feel like it should be every day. And I know it's good to have these like celebration weeks or whatever, however you want to explore them. But I feel like a week comes and goes, and then people kind of go back to, okay, what is autism, and why are certain people diagnosed, and all those kind of questions. And I think on Instagram particularly, the autistic community is amazing for that, because we do those kind of posts every day, well, every year. It's not just one week. It's kind of, every week that we might post something, or every day for some people, and that's where I think it needs to change, because there are autism specialists, but I think the experts of autism are the people who are autistic.
Yeah, that's it. And we are, aren't we? Well, we're like, we should be the ones working there. And those things, shouldn't we? Like in the like films, for example. I feel that like for some people, like it's a mix of opinions. Like if like an actor who's autistic should be playing on an autism character in a program. But like, because if they're not, they kind of, so some people may think they undermine the actual being autistic. Like you're kind of guessing what they would feel like. And
it's not authentic, is it?
No.
If they, and I think it's important, not just that, but with autistic creators, autistic adults need to be listened to, because even if you're diagnosed late in life, you reflect back after you've had your diagnosis, and you can see, even as a child, what you went through, and that will help other children who are getting diagnosed now, or who are getting diagnosed later. And I think people forget that autistic children become autistic adults. Even if you go undiagnosed your whole life, you've still experienced those things during your childhood and your teenage years and early adulthood. So I'm very passionate about that.
I like going back to what you said about like awareness days of acceptance weeks and everything. Like I agree. Like I had a conversation with actually someone yesterday. I was on like a meeting for World Acceptance Day, like to go out for then, and like asking questions and stuff. And the one thing I said was that I said like how I feel about these days, like not just autism, anything, like every diagnosis has this, don't they? They have a week and a day.
Or a month.
Like for example, with my Crohn's disease, that's actually the same. We have IBD day, they call it, in May, normally on May the 19th, and then in December 1st to the 7th is like inflammatory bowel disease week. So it's similar to autism in a way, that you have that week and you have that day. So I feel like, although it's lovely to have these, like I suppose it's a nice like celebration of it, and like we can talk about it. You see a bit more though, don't you? You see a bit more than you'd usually see it throughout the year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I like how you said, it's nice to have that celebration, but I agree with you. It needs to be, the awareness and acceptance needs to be not just 1 week or 1 day or 1 month. But I think we will get there eventually. We're still kind of behind with it, but I think the more we do this, the more we educate people.
Yeah, it could be confusing as well, because like other people who are not really, don't understand it, or quite new to the community, they might automatically think, hang on a minute, there's only 1 week to raise awareness for autism and 1 day for acceptance day, so they'll be thinking, oh, what are we doing for the rest of the year then?
Quite literal thinking, isn't it? Yeah. That's why I like the Instagram autistic community. by and large, there are people who are genuine and who want to make their experience known so that people don't feel alone. And I think when we do get together and the vast majority of them are genuine, it does empower you and makes you feel validated.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Like I like seeing other people talk about autism and like how like dedicated they are to do it, and some people do take it takes a lot of time as opposed to plan like what you're gonna do and like what you're gonna say and stuff. So I think it's a really good community on there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad I found them when I did.
Yeah, it's very good. Like I only found out 2020 kind of
Yeah.
really start the pandemic, and
Yeah.
we're here now.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
I was the same, I think mine was 2019, 2020, because in 2019 is when I started having the autistic diagnosis, the process of it and all that kind of stuff. That was after 2018 when I'd had the two, what they thought were breakdowns, but were autistic burnouts. And so finding that community did help me accept the autism. So I think when we started our conversation, we were thinking about kind of sometimes accepting it is hard, but when you're connecting with other people who are getting a diagnosis or have a diagnosis, it does help.
yeah. I agree, and like with it comes with like sarcasm. People take sarcasm differently. I know when I was younger, I didn't understand sarcasm. I didn't really like to understand jokes. I thought people take the mick out of me. But
I
now,
still think that.
yeah. Like it's hard, isn't it? Sarcasm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest issues, and I think, oh, I say issues, it's how I am. I don't personally see it as an issue, but I know that family and friends, if they say something that's meant as a joke or are being sarcastic, I take it literally, and I completely miss the point. So people like my family are slowly learning about that. We kind of joke about it now, but when I was younger, I found it so humiliating and very kind of, it made me very self-conscious.
Yeah, that's it. Like you have like I was the same when I was younger. Like I got offended quite bad, and I was probably sometimes crying about certain things that they thought as jokes. And like now, I think because I got more confident, I understand sarcasm a bit better. And sometimes I'll be sarcastic myself now, and like it's kind of, in a way, it's nice, but people need to make sure and be careful what they say, like how it comes across to an autistic person that may interpret that in another way that you're thinking it.
Yeah, I think my partner Sam is brilliant because he has learned a lot about autism since my diagnosis, and he actually used to joke before I got diagnosed as autistic. He used to go, "You're being very autistic," and he apologized because he said I shouldn't have said that, but obviously we didn't know that I was, because I hadn't had the diagnosis. But it's interesting. I think the more people take an interest and learn about how to communicate with autistic people, and because everyone, like I've said, everyone is different on the spectrum, but generally speaking, sometimes I need things explaining to me more than once, or I need a joke to be explained because I have no idea what the joke means. And Sam, my partner, is really good at that.
I'm the same, like with the explaining thing. Like someone had to be explained to me. If I don't understand it first time, I have to explain it several. And that, like, especially like even at school or stuff like that, I would, like, so reading a book, I would not, you don't ask me any questions about it or to read it, because sometimes teacher would point out, read from this point, and I'll say, where are we? And then when they come to the questions at the end, because I'm daydreaming, thinking other things, thinking what I'm going to do after school, or like what I'm going to do tonight, like not focused on the book, because I feel I'll be all right, but books are not my go thing.
Yeah, I in some ways I'm similar. I mean, I think I know I have a processing kind of, auditory and sometimes visual. I process things in a different way, or maybe slightly slower than my peers. And I was the same. I used to find also in school the environment very, very difficult. So if you mix those two things together, the processing disorder or whatever they want to name it, and the environment, I actually didn't do most of my learning at school. I did most of my learning at home with my dad, because he knew how to teach me in a different way so that I could absorb it. If I was in school and I was being asked a question, I wouldn't have processed what other people had been, what we'd been learning in the class, and I'd feel so nervous because I wouldn't be able to retain that information, because my short-term memory can be quite hit and miss.
Yeah.
Whereas my long-term memory is brilliant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like memory is like you can get brain fog, I suppose, and forget certain things and forget what you are. And I do that. Something that I find boring, I suppose. Like if you do something boring and like, oh, you got to do this, so I just focus on other things and stuff.
Yeah, like what's going on outside the window, or oh, that light's flickering, or that board is bright. You know, all those kind of things I used to have in my head as well. And I don't know whether I daydreamed, because I did mask quite a lot, but I remember having that internal dialogue thinking, how is everyone understanding what's going on? How is everyone interacting with each other in a group? I don't get it. But then I would kind of watch and I would imitate it. So that's how I slipped through the net. And I think a lot of girls, but some boys as well, do slip through the net, unfortunately. And that can cause kind of confidence issues, self-esteem issues, trauma, because especially with masking, it's so exhausting, and so it makes you feel like you shouldn't be who you are. And in school, that's a huge thing, because you want to fit in. Naturally, you want to fit in. There were things that I always heard growing up, which I now know are kind of autistic traits. So people would say things like, why are you wearing that? You dress differently. You're childish. You're too intense. You get upset over the littlest things. This shouldn't be so difficult for you. You are so particular. You interrupt. Don't you get the joke? All those kind of things used to be said to me on a daily basis, whether that was at school or at home. And I think nowadays, I still think children slip through the net, but I don't understand why. Because those kind of things, you immediately think, oh, that's something, that's an autistic trait. So yeah.
That's it. Like I think what we do is like we can have hyperfixations, they're called, where we are connected to a hobby of ours, and we really like it, and like as we stick on this one thing. I think most autistic people have as well. And like, do you have any like hobbies that you are really into?
I'm very creative. I love poetry. I like writing poetry. I like drawing and painting. I've always been very creative. That's how I express myself. I love animals, but particularly my cat Hercules. And in terms of special interests, it kind of comes and goes. I wouldn't say that I kind of have a focused interest that I pour myself into and I absorb, but that can change throughout time. So yeah, I think, but the one that sticks with me is my creativity, the poetry. Yeah, those are my main things that I kind of absorb myself into. And yeah, but how about you?
Like I do. I kind of talk about mine is basically Doctor Who.
Yes, I can see see it in the background.
Yeah, you can see the little TARDIS box. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I found is there's many autistic people that like the same, and I found like in the community that like Doctor Who and like me, and I think that's really cool. And like I'll talk about it all the time, and I get it. So some people like I'll even do videos on it sometimes and act as characters and stuff, and
I can
people,
see why. Yeah.
and people on have people on the podcast as well, and different people like come on, and we have a kind of, we relate it to autism because it is related to, like, if we just have a talk about Doctor Who or a hobby, is completely related to autism because it's to do with that hyperfixations, like talk about it and stuff. But
I think that's the same with me with the art, because if I sit and start a project, however small or big it is, I will spend hours and hours and hours without noticing anything else around me, because I'm so hyper focused on what I'm doing. It's not just painting, it's not just poetry for me. That's all I can focus on, and anything else going on around me I don't notice. And then I will spend time kind of, after I've, say, painted a picture, then I'll spend time looking at it and analysing it and seeing what I could improve and this might not sound special interest, but it's definitely a hyper focusing, because I won't drink or eat necessarily, even if it's in my routine, because I'm so like focused. It's like tunnel vision.
you always focus, like you get focused, like I suppose like another one, like it's just like talking about, like you talk about your art and then you focused on it, and I suppose it could be really concentrated as well, like if you're doing a painting or something, because like if you're distracted and then you miss something might smudge over somewhere else, and then you might have to restart it.
I'm very particular, I'm a perfectionist, and these are all kind of things that are linked to autism, I think. And I notice details that other people don't. So if I'm investing in something, whether it's a pattern or symmetry, things like that appeal to me. Other people, I find, may not notice things that I do. For example, in terms of photography was another of my what I regard as special interest when I was younger, and I really loved photography because I was able to capture things in that moment, and it was very powerful. So although I'm not doing photography at the moment, I still, when I talk about it, I feel kind of happy, and it makes me want to do it. But yeah, I mean, I won awards when I was at college when I did photography for my portraits. I went around and I took photographs of people in the community where I lived, and they really told a story. And I think that's where my eye for detail came in.
It's like, well, it's good you won some awards.
I won an award when I was doing A level.
It's good, like when you get awards for different things, and like I got one last year for it was for doing like a lot of awareness and at home, like not outside, and I didn't expect it, because I'm an ambassador for like an organization, and like because there's younger people than me, I thought, I won't get it because I'm a bit older than them and stuff, and then I came to my house and I got some trophy, and I thought,
congratulations.
Yeah, and like it was quite funny because when I was younger, I built this skeleton in my room. Like each week you have a different part to create the skeleton, and I used that as a medal thing. Like every medal I get, I put over them, and because I did sports camps. I did sports camps when I was younger, so I put them over there. And the weird thing is, because you're learning about the body parts and stuff, you get this book as well. The weird thing is, afterwards they were saying that you can put the skin parts on the body, and I was thinking, no point of that. Like, but
that sounds brilliant. Well done for that. That's great. And I'm sure there'll be more. But the other thing,
Yeah.
thinking back actually, another, I would say I enjoy repetitive activities. So things like art, it's the movement of the paintbrushes or the pencils. You mentioned sport. I was actually a competitive swimmer as a child and also a competitive rower. And I did that. I trained 5-6 days a week straight for years. And both those sports require repetition, technique, precision, kind of passion for the sport, commitment, and they really like emphasized my values, but also now what I look back on as autistic traits, because I absorbed myself so much into and got so involved in my sport and achieved quite a lot in those years in terms of competitions. But the thing that really made me want to do it was the repetition, because I found it soothing. So we talk about stimming in the autistic community, and I didn't realize that because I was masking so much at school and sometimes at home, the sport actually allowed me to have that movement that I was craving, because I'd come home and I'd have these big outbursts because I'd been suppressing stuff for so long throughout the day. And then sport allowed me to release that energy, and I really, really loved it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I suppose swimming is a good one. Like you can relieve like the stress for your day, and like if you've had a really bad day, you go swimming. And I suppose if you feel angry about something as well, like you can maybe just go, I'm not like the water. It don't matter how hard you do it. Like you go really fast. And
yeah.
like I do enjoy swimming. Like I like going to like like centre parks or something. Like you go down the flumes and or water
Yeah.
parks. I think that it's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, mine, I wouldn't think, I don't think most people would find 6 days a week plowing up and down the pool as fun necessarily, but I did. And I did it like I said, most days, sometimes every day. But yeah, the flumes sound fun. They sound much more fun than plowing up and down a pool. But yeah, because we used to swim miles, but for me, like I said, that enabled me to have an outlet, because the meltdowns would get really bad if I was suppressing it and I didn't have an outlet. And it's still like that today. I just know more about things such as meltdowns, so I have more strategies. But if I get understimulated or overstimulated, that's how I explode. At home, mostly behind closed doors. But yeah, there's misconceptions around that, aren't there?
Yeah, like yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Like for like swimming, I enjoy it. I want the best, I'd say. But I'd do right swim to the other length of the pool and without stopping.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did go do some swimming lessons before the pandemic, and like one of the guys was one of the guys I wanted to have. He does like tournaments like around the world, and he went to go underwater with the like the fish and stuff, which was pretty cool. And like it was a good experience. Like I do enjoy swimming. It's kind of like if you go to the theme parks, a bit like going on a roller coaster if you like that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's quite scary when you look at it, I suppose. Like when you're not doing it, like if you have a big going down a big flume, it's quite scary.
I can, yeah, and I haven't been on one for years, but I think it's adrenaline, isn't it, as well? And I think as autistic people sometimes experience that's when they feel kind of understimulated and they want something that's going to stimulate them. So I guess the flume would be one of those things, and yeah, it's fun as well. So
Yeah.
I agree with you on that one. I mean, in terms of meltdowns and shutdowns and things like that, I think more awareness needs to be had on what a meltdown actually is. Because a lot of people who are perhaps neurotypical see it as a tantrum, and it's really not. I don't know what your experience of that is, because I find that when I was a child particularly, I found that very difficult because it wasn't what my parents thought it was, and I was punished for it. Because they didn't know either. So I'm not blaming them, but I think, it became more obvious as I got older. And of course, it's not accepted as much when you're older. Because of society and the norms.
That's it. It's not accepted, is it? And like like in schools, like especially when I was at school, like if people were doing that and like maybe rocking on the chairs and doing different stuff, teacher would think they're being like doing it on purpose to disrupt the class, and it's not, that wasn't the case. And yeah, it's not, it needs to be more around that, I think, and so people do understand, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think the difference between a meltdown and what is perceived as a tantrum, I think the difference is a tantrum is for something specific, and when they get it, it goes. Meltdowns are kind of like, for me anyway, an emotional outlet. Something that has overwhelmed me, and my brain can't process what that is, and it feels uncomfortable and it feels scary, and I can't control it. It's not something that can be kind of, oh, stop it now, and oh yeah, that is fine. It's not. And it can be quite disruptive or destructive, but it's not something that I'm necessarily in control of. And it takes kind of regulation and quiet and time to myself to actually kind of let it, almost like riding a wave, because there's no point fighting against it. It's not going to change it. But if I kind of roll with it, eventually it does calm down. And although I sometimes feel guilty, since my diagnosis, I'm now more accepting of myself. And if I do have a meltdown, I don't beat myself up about it afterwards. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, that's it. And it's harder. Yeah, it's harder to talk about those kind of things with people that who don't understand, and they'll might just say that like put it aside and not listen. So it's hard.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if it is not understood, it causes trauma. And I think, for example, being punished when you're not doing anything wrong, and I think for me, that's where a lot of my trauma came from as a child and growing up, because it was genuine cries of distress. It wasn't what people perceived it as. But yeah, I have a very accepting partner, and my family, now that I've got my diagnosis, are open and willing to learn about things, which I'm so pleased about. And I think there's still some learning to be done, but I feel like I am more accepted by those around me, and that makes massive difference to one's mental health.
Yeah, it's good that it's always good that you have like a good support system around you, I think. And like I think with like in school and getting told off for being like disruptive, or you think you're doing the right thing and you still get told off. And that was my experience in mainstream quite a lot of the time. I would do things that I thought I was getting told, and then I got told to go to the library once, and I got a detention for it, and then I had the year was quite aggressive the following day, and I was really, my anxiety was quite high at that point, because it was me and a couple others, and we I said can I said what the situation was, and like I got told to stand at the library, and then I go back, and then they say no, I got detention, and then because I wasn't confident at that point in my autism, so I kind of, now I would say something like, back probably more brutal or something, like how I actually feel, not hiding
Mhm.
that or like masking that at the time. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it'd be nice. Well, when I left, they asked me if I'm gonna come back, and I said yeah. I can't say no, can I? Yeah.
No, that would be good. I think a lot of young people need autistic role models, and real life ones, not just ones that are made up in films or series. And I think that's where autistic adults are needed, especially in schools, especially in families that don't understand autism, or perhaps are finding it hard to deal with a diagnosis of their child being autistic, because it can, I'm sure as a parent it can be very scary and a huge thing to take on, but at the end of the day, those diagnoses are going to help those people, and I think we have to support that in whatever way we can. But I think, yeah, definitely real life autistic role models definitely needed.
That's it.
Mm.
Yeah, we do like. Yeah, it is hard. Like, yeah, especially for parents if they have a child with autism. As well. And like, I did speak to a person, and then and like, I think it was Finland, and they said over there they don't have like the labels high functioning and low functioning, and which
Mm.
I thought was good, because it'd be nice if that wasn't the
Yeah.
case over here. Like, if it was no stating like someone's high and low, because someone that's high may be able to do someone can't as low, and like it's the other way around. Like, if people look more severe, that they may be able to do something that someone who possibly
Yeah.
doesn't look more severe.
I totally agree with you, and I think the misconception is that although high functioning and low functioning is apparently used still, I find it very difficult because, like you just said, because I am articulate, because I used to have a career, because I am able to have a conversation sometimes, not always, and it's fluent, because I can cook a meal. They think, oh wow, this person is high functioning because they can do all those things. But if I go outside and I get overwhelmed and my brain goes into overload, I struggle to function and do the things that I've gone out for, and I struggle with other things like making friends or socializing, because I personally find eye contact very difficult. I find small talk very difficult. I find connecting with other people around me very difficult. But like you said, if then on the other side of the spectrum, if you're classed as low functioning, which I don't, I'm like you, I don't like those terms. There's an author who wrote The Reason I Jump, and he was nonverbal, or is nonverbal, and he wrote this book at 13 years old, and used the letter board to communicate. And if people are narrow-minded and think, okay, this person can't talk and they don't understand, that is where the difficulties come in, because that's underestimating, isn't it? Oh,
That's
someone
it.
who, yeah, who has so much to give,
Yeah.
so I don't agree with the labeling either, and I wish they would take that away and
Yeah.
see it as a whole person, because if you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. We're all different and we all struggle with different things. It's like this, isn't it? It's kind of like some people struggle with social situations, some people suffer more with or experience difficulties in eye contact, some people don't like certain food textures. It's this, the whole point of a spectrum is it's all different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Different
And
profiles.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it goes on appearance as well. Like as well. With like, if a person looks more severe, like autistic, like they can't talk, like you're saying, like being social, like they need help talking, that they need like an autism person in a class may not need help. They maybe want to be left alone, and another person may need more help about a certain thing, and they think that possibly saying they'll say that person more autistic than you because they can't do it and you can. So it's
There's no
really
such thing as more autistic, is there? You're
no,
either autistic or you're not. And I think you're right in what you say. I just hope that one day that, a bit like the Asperger's thing, it got taken away, and it's not, that's one step forward, but we have quite a way to go, haven't we?
yeah. Yeah, because like with Asperger and autism, like a person maybe it's in the same spectrum, but a person may like to be called Asperger's, and another person might like to be called autism. And it's all different, isn't it?
It's personal choice, and I
Yeah.
think it's what you feel comfortable with. Personally, I like being known as autistic rather than a person with autism, but I know there are other people who prefer person with autism, and I think you have to go on what that person feels comfortable with. But I think the low functioning and high functioning labels are not helpful at all.
They're not. They're not like we should be taken after Finland.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. Like I don't know how other countries do. I don't think like they call high functioning, low functioning. I know for a fact in America, I've spoke to people because well having Crohn's, like have a colonoscopy in the UK. People have those procedures are awake for them, and in America I've spoke to a few people that are asleep, and I find that really bizarre because it's not for long and people are asleep and we're not asleep over here. So it's those different things that different countries do, and I just find it really interesting.
Yeah, I do too. And that's what's so, I think, so important to learn from other people and other countries. And I think by doing that, we will move forward. But at the moment, we are still not quite where we should be, I think, in 2022, where there are still children and adults who are suffering, which they shouldn't be suffering, because they're either undiagnosed or misdiagnosed or misunderstood. And professionals who claim to know about autism have a very archaic view on what autism looks like or what it should look like. And people are being turned away because they don't meet certain criteria. But if you spend the time understanding them and listening to them, they might fit it in a very different way, but they definitely have what they would experience in terms of autism traits, just in a different way. I mean, I've heard some people being turned away by the doctors or by an organization who helps diagnose autistic people because they momentarily gave eye contact in a GP appointment. They have talked about going to see some friends. Those friends, for me, I only have, I would say, one or two close friends who I sometimes socialize with, but generally speaking, a lot of my socializing is online and like this, whereas in person I struggle with that. And my psychiatrist at the time knew that, and she could see that when I was in person I really struggled to, even though I'm very articulate, I went from being articulate to not. And I think it takes someone with an open mind like my psychiatrist to go, there's something different about this, whereas other professionals might just go, oh no, that's not autism, and dismiss it.
Yeah, like there's certain things like with eye contact as well. Like I don't until I know someone really well, I might use my do eye contact. But I'm not. I don't meet new people. Maybe a bit shy and won't look into their eyes. And yeah, it's hard. Like even for I think jobs as well. People with autism, if they can't do those certain things, they have to. They can't work there. Which is sad, and it's hard for autistic people to find jobs, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same in terms of, you know, I'm at a point in my recovery where I'm starting to think about work again. And as I mentioned before, my last job was as a teacher, and I mean, I loved teaching in the classroom, but if you think about the sensory things around classrooms and as a teacher, where you're constantly, there's no break from kind of visual, audio, movement, all those kind of things that overload you over time. So by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when I used to send the children home, I would get to a point where I would sit down in the chair and my brain would kind of just switch off and shut down, and I would not be able to do other things that I needed to do. So as a teacher, there's lots of admin, meetings, training, things like that, which my brain had shut down, and I could not, although I was able to mask it for a certain amount of time towards the end of that career, which was 3 or 4 years long. That's what caused me to have the most severe burnout, because I was getting home and I couldn't function. I really couldn't function. I'd have a massive meltdown. I'd fall asleep, and then I'd wake up at 11 o'clock in the evening and have to start marking books and doing admin. And then I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning the next day and go back to school and do it all over again. And you can imagine the sensory overload. It was just too much.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And like with being a teacher, like what was you doing? Like what class, or like was you like teaching and stuff?
So I was a primary school teacher, teaching 7 and 8 year olds mostly.
Okay.
And I loved the children because I connect with children a lot, even more so than people my own age. I connect with them. I have kind of I feel like they're so honest and so kind of happy go lucky people, little people, and I loved giving them knowledge and sharing an experience of a year with them, because you get to know them so well, and I just loved the whole kind of, I don't know, making connections with them, helping them learn new things, and then sending them off home happy. That was my main aim, and I did achieve that. But like I said, I could not maintain the things that followed. So like after school had finished, I just couldn't maintain it. And that's what's so sad about it, because the teaching itself was brilliant and I was good at it.
Yeah, and like it's good that you had that experience, like to be like doing teacher, like doing what you like to do, and then like it's good you made it like the choice not like to stop for like your own good as well. So who knows, that you may decide to do something like that again, but it's just, it all just takes time, like to do something that's comfortable for you and accessible for your autism.
Yeah, I think so. And I now I have got that formal diagnosis. I'm looking, my desire really moving forward in terms of career is more in kind of charities and advocacy, things like that, because if I go to a charity and start working with a bit like what you do, I guess, but advocacy work and things like that, I feel like they'll be more accepting of my diagnosis, and that I'd be able to be more honest about it. I've made peace with that. I can't do the careers at the moment anyway. I can't do the careers that I chose and I trained really hard for, but I've made peace with that because it just wasn't right for me. And by it not being right for me, it wasn't good for the school and it wasn't good for the children. So I did have to make that hard decision. But I feel like moving forward, I would like to do advocacy work. I would like to work with a charity, preferably an autistic charity, because I have my own experience and I feel like I could bring a lot to that other people. And so, like I was saying before, you know, autistic people are the experts, and I think that's where we're needed. So yeah, who knows, you know, I might do stuff in schools. It's about thinking about different. I think also the other thing is, for me, part-time work I think is going to be the best thing, because I'll have those days where I can self-regulate. I can just be myself, be me in my own space, and I think that will enable me to work longer term. I think anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think that's good. Like I think that's a really good idea, because like you don't want to work all the time. It's very stressful. Like you have certain maybe days of week, hours, what work for you. And
That's in the ideal world.
yeah, in the ideal world, like depending how accepting the
Yeah.
people there are, like the manager and stuff, and
Mm.
people, like I think,
Because
yeah,
yeah, because I've started doing some voluntary work for the National Autistic Society, but in my area, so a branch, and I've been doing website accessibility design, and also doing a newsletter, and I'm also looking at doing some peer support work. So this is why I'm feeling like I could do, because I've been able to do that and I felt happy doing it and I felt relaxed doing it. So I feel like this is where this idea is coming from, and I can use my skills and my degrees and my knowledge and my own experience to make a place better for someone, whether that is an autistic charity in the future or somewhere else. But I agree with what you're saying. Hopefully I will be able to find an employer that does accept neurodiversity and has adaptations that can be put in place. And I'm sure there are places out there, they're just few and far between, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. Like, but you have so many options, don't you? Like you have, like, if you want to go back to school, like you have art, and you have like the advocacy work you want to do, like as well, which you can involve all that as well. Like in one, I suppose, like your art can be involved around autism easily, because like what you want to do, and art's very open.
It's accessible, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I did art when I was at school. I had an art teacher for a year or so, and we had an art exam, and it's very, in schools, especially when the exams come apart, it's very, I suppose, stressful on you, like especially if you're doing art, because you've got to be very quiet. I'd be quiet for 2 whole days. You can't even move, so that could even distract you if everyone's paint brushes, or like painting that over there. But I was actually quite pleased with what I made. I didn't think I was going to be good, because I try and draw and stuff, like I like with logos and stuff. I advise people what to do and stuff, and I say don't draw what I've drawn, because it won't look good. Yeah.
That's amazing though. I like how you're using that to help with branding and things like that, because you know what's accessible as well, and also if you've got that creative mind, you have an eye for detail, so of course people should take what you're advising, because you've got those skills. So I think it's all good, isn't it? And but in the ideal world, we would have all employers aware of disability in general and working on our strengths, rather than focusing on what we perhaps need help with, because that's what we bring something different.
Yeah, we do. We're different, aren't we?
Yeah. I think why be different when you're born? Why be the same when you're born different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Sarah, before we finish, is there anything else you want to say to finish off?
Yeah, sure. The message I'd like to leave with the listeners is this: autistic voices need to be listened to and heard, so not silenced and not invalidated. If you take one thing away, please listen to us. Support us, amplify our voices. Autistic people are experts by experience, and that is kind of my message. Yeah,
I think it's a great message, and I see people actually spreading that message already this week on the acceptance week. People saying, listen to us, because we don't listen to autistic people. It's really damaging the community, I think. So great advice, Sarah, because I agree. As for many people listening and watching, agree as well. And I think it's been really nice talking to you today, because we spoke about lots of really important things.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Mason.